Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about alliances, the balance of power, and the road to World War I. And so I'm sure most of you know the term, the fact that the Balkans were the powder keg of Europe leading up to World War I from other history classes. And honestly, for myself, before I started teaching AP Euro, I didn't really know the full details that went into all that chaos that was stirred up in the Balkans. And so it's actually, in a lot of ways, due to a series of treaties by Bismarck and then a series of wars in the Balkans that lead directly to that conflict that starts World War I. And so I think it can be rather complicated, and so this is the best way I found to go over it. Normally, if I was here, I would go over it with you on the Elmo and fill it out as we go. But I thought since I can't do that, I would take pictures of the different sections and we would go through it pretty much as if I was there. All right, so the overall goals of Bismarck's alliances are to maintain the balance of power. So remember, the balance of power had been disrupted with the Crimean War. The concert system of Europe is pretty much over. But Bismarck still sees value in maintaining a balance of power in Europe. He also definitely wants protection from France. And if you think about the outcome of the Franco-Prussian War and how humiliated France was, he is concerned that France is really going to be seeking revenge against Germany. And so that's kind of a secondary thing that he's trying to achieve out of these alliances. So the first one is the Three Emperors League from 1873 to 1887. And the goals of this alliance are to prevent French revenge on Germany. So he wants to form an alliance where Germany has other strong allies in Europe, and that hopefully will prevent those countries from allying with France instead. He also wants to deal with the rivalry in the Balkans between Russia and Austria-Hungary. So remember, under the concert system after the Congress of Vienna, with the principle of intervention, Russia and Austria-Hungary worked together to stop revolts. But that really ended with the Crimean War when Austria-Hungary failed to come to Russia's aid. And so he wants to deal with those issues. And as we go, for the ones that have a map, I've labeled the countries that are involved, so if that helps you kind of keep them straight, you can do that. So Germany, Russia, and Austria-Hungary. And for each section, if you need more time to write it down, then Misty can just pause the video and then you can keep going when you're ready. The next major stage is the Congress of Berlin in 1878. This can be very confusing because we already learned about the Berlin Conference from 1885, which is where Europe met to divide up Africa amongst themselves. That's a totally separate thing. They just have very similar names. So that one is the Berlin Conference, related to imperialism. This is the Congress of Berlin, 1878. All right, so this was caused by Serbia and Montenegro in the Balkans region declaring war on the Ottomans in 1876. So remember, there's a lot of nationalist sentiment in the Balkans, and so these countries want to declare their freedom. The Ottomans, we know, are in decline. They're slowly disintegrating, especially after the Crimean War. And so these countries are seeking independence. The outcome of this is that the Ottomans won, and so that leads Russia and Austria-Hungary to go then attack the Ottomans to try to destroy them once and for all. Out of this, they create a new state of Bulgaria. Bulgaria is viewed as a Russian satellite, and so other countries in Europe view this negatively because they feel like it disrupts the balance of power, and they see Russia creating this large state of Slavic people that's kind of allied with Russia, and that worries some of the other powers. So because of those reasons, that's why they all come together to meet at the Congress of Berlin. And so they want to kind of redraw the boundaries of the Balkans to try to restore the balance of power. So what happens? Bulgaria is reduced. Some of the territory that had made up Bulgaria is sent back to the Ottomans. Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania are declared independent states. Bosnia and Herzegovina are put under the protection of Austria-Hungary. So under this agreement, Austria-Hungary is not supposed to ever colonize or fully take over those areas, but Bosnia and Herzegovina are supposed to be protected from attack by Austria-Hungary. And on the map, I labeled somewhat some of them. This map doesn't perfectly align to the boundaries of these countries at the time, but it's pretty close. So we have Russia, Austria-Hungary, and then if you want to label the others, it's up to you. The M is the approximate location of Montenegro. The B is the approximate location of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and the remaining Ottoman Empire. Now, the other effect of this is that Russia is angry at Germany over its support of Austria-Hungary in this agreement. And so Russia cancels its involvement in the Three Emperors League, the first alliance that we just talked about. So again, if you need more time to write this down, go ahead and pause the video and then you can go on when you're ready. Okay, so now that the Three Emperors League has been canceled, Bismarck seeks new alliances to kind of make up for that. So the Triple Alliance occurred in 1882, and the goal here is to support the status quo. So he doesn't want any other big movements. He wants the leaders of Europe to remain as they are, and he also wants to guard against France and any other possible threats. Okay, so Russia had canceled the Three Emperors League, so he looks for other allies, again, to kind of make sure that those people won't ally with France instead. And so this is an alliance between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. And I'm sure that you're familiar with the Triple Alliance from previous studies of World War I. This is the same agreement that we reference when we talk about that war. Okay, now after the Three Emperors League has been canceled, Bismarck is kind of worried that Russia might potentially try to ally with France, and that would be bad for Germany because France hates Germany. And so in 1887, Bismarck goes after the reinsurance treaty. So he's reinsuring that France is not going to ally with Russia and that Germany will continue to have at least an okay relationship with Russia. So this is an agreement just between Germany and Russia. Okay, now we know Bismarck was dismissed by Emperor Wilhelm II in 1890. He wanted a new direction in foreign policy. So why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video here and see if you can discuss and answer the next two questions. And then when you unpause it, I'll go over the answers with you. So the next question is, how did Kaiser Wilhelm II's views on foreign policy differ from Bismarck's? So remember, Bismarck is a very pragmatic politician. He follows realpolitik. He tries to look at the world in a very realistic way. Kaiser Wilhelm, on the other hand, really his number one goal is to promote German power and authority, whereas Bismarck sometimes is much more willing to work with others and not necessarily take a back seat, but the balance of power he still recognizes is really important to the stability of Europe. And without that, Bismarck feels like it will lead directly to war. And so Kaiser Wilhelm wants to take them on a different path where they promote German dominance, which is not necessarily what Bismarck had been doing. And so what changes did Kaiser Wilhelm make? He dropped the reinsurance treaty. So he no longer has that alliance with Russia, and that opens up the possibility for Russia to ally with Germany's enemy, France. And that's exactly what happened. So it pushed France, Russia, and Britain together to form a new alliance, which I'm sure you also already know from previous study of World War I, and that is the Triple Entente. So the Triple Entente main goal is to oppose the Triple Alliance. So it's a defensive alliance against the Triple Alliance, and it included Great Britain, Russia, and France. All right, so that sets the alliance system up for World War I, because the two major remaining alliances we have, again, are the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. Now, what happens in the Balkans next that directly leads to World War I. So remember that Bosnia and Herzegovina had been placed under the protection of Austria, but they were not supposed to ever invade them or actually take them over. And so Austria went and outright annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina. This upset their neighbors in the Balkans. Serbia, you might remember from studying World War I previously as well, Serbia, one of their goals was to be like a magnet state for Slavic people in Eastern Europe and in the Balkans. And so they had this dream of creating this large Serbian or Slavic kingdom, and so they see Bosnia and Herzegovina as part of that future state. And so now that they've been taken over by Austria, that very much angers them. Austria opposes this idea from the very beginning because of nationalism. So remember, Austria-Hungary is this big multi-ethnic empire. Remember, previously we talked in the 1800s about them crushing revolts like the Hungarians. And so because Austria-Hungary contains a lot of Slavic people, they're afraid that if Serbia succeeds in creating this large Slavic kingdom, that the Slavs within Austria-Hungary will try to break off Austria-Hungary and go join up with Serbia. And so they don't want this. Now, Russia has always supported the Serbs in this, and you might remember that from studying World War I as well, because they are also Slavic people. Also, they really hate Austria, and so they just want to stick it to Austria. And so the Serbs kind of prepared for war in the background, knowing that they have Russia on their side should this tension come to war. So the results of this, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany intervened and said that Russia must back down or Germany would possibly attack them. At this time, in the very early 1900s, Russia is weakened from the Russo-Japanese War, which I believe is 1904. They had been defeated by Japan in that war, and so they did back down. They were still recovering and had been humiliated in that war, and so they just didn't really have the ability to press on with this new war right away. This leads to future conflict, however, because Russia is humiliated in this situation. They're forced to back off of this alliance with Serbia, and that really upsets them. So this leads directly to the First and Second Balkan Wars. Okay, so the First Balkan War is in 1912. We have Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Greece versus the Ottomans. The Ottomans lost, but this doesn't really settle anything, even though they lost, because in the peace settlements that they tried to make, no one could really agree over territory, and so it really led directly to the Second War in 1913. So this war is Greece, Serbia, Romania, and the Ottomans versus Bulgaria. The results of this, Bulgaria lost. And the roots for further conflict, Serbia gained a little land out of this, but still not a large Slavic kingdom. And so Austria-Hungary continues to put pressure on the situation to not allow Serbia to expand, and Russia, having Serbia as an ally, is not happy with this situation. So now that you know all of that, I know that was a lot of information, you can go ahead and discuss as a class why were the Balkans called the powder keg of Europe, now that you know a lot more detail. So I hope that helps you to understand these different alliances. You covered it in your reading homework, but I know it can be really complex to understand. So I hope that having a handout with everything laid out will be helpful to you as you study for your test.